I'm not very good at singing songs, but here's a try. If you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. Space is filled with a network of wormholes. You might emerge somewhere else in space. Some win out in time. The sky calls to us. If we do not destroy ourselves, we will one day venture to the stars. A still more glorious dawn awaits, not a sunrise, but a galaxy rise. A morning filled with 400 billion suns. The rising of the Milky Way. The cosmos is full beyond measure. Elegant truths of exquisite interrelationships of the awesome machinery of nature. I believe our future depends powerfully on how well we understand this cosmos, in which we float like a mote of dust in the morning sky. But the brain does much more than just recollect. It intercompares, it synthesizes, it analyzes, it generates abstractions. The simplest thought, like the concept of the number one, has an elaborate logical underpinning. The brain has its own language for testing the structure and consistency of the world. A still more glorious dawn awaits, not a sunrise, but a galaxy rise. A morning filled with 400 billion suns. The rising of the Milky Way. The sky calls to us. If we do not destroy ourselves, we will one day venture to the stars.
For thousands of years, people have wondered about the universe. Did it stretch out forever, or was there a limit? From the Big Bang to black holes, from dark matter to a possible Big Crunch, our image of the universe today is full of strange sounding ideas.
How lucky we are to live in this time, the first moment in human history when we are, in fact, visiting other worlds. A still more glorious dawn awaits, not a sunrise, but a galaxy rise. A morning filled with 400 billion suns. The rising of the Milky Way. A still more glorious dawn awaits, not a sunrise, but a galaxy rise. A morning filled with 400 billion suns. The rising of the Milky Way. The surface of the Earth is the shore of the cosmic ocean. Recently, we've waded a little way up, and the water seems inviting.
Good morning. Welcome to the beloved community known as UU Amherst. My name's Charlie Destries, and I have been here, well, I guess almost a year now. And as I tell the story, my dear friend Julie Marquis and I basically came here by accident, and we never left. And there were lots of reasons for that. We both had different reasons, and I think we all do. But mine was really just a sense of community, which is what I really needed. I spent a lot of time holed up in the house, even before the pandemic, because I was a one-man band entrepreneur. So I didn't have a lot of people around me except for my wonderful family, but everyone's busy and doing their own thing. And I'm happy to say that you've probably seen this little girl called Poppy running around here, my granddaughter, who's with me. And now her grandma, my beautiful wife, Gail, is here as well, which I'm so excited about because she's here to also sing in the choir. And I couldn't be more proud to be surrounded by not my family, my friends, but my new friends at this beautiful place. And if you're visiting, hang out a little bit. It's just a bunch of nice people with great values, kindness, and a lot of happiness. So thank you for welcoming me and my family for being in this position. I really do appreciate it, and let's see if Michelle allows this audition to continue. So, so for those of you gathered in the chapel, I invite you to put your phones on airplane mode. It's really important. Or as we like to call it, worship mode, or I'm going to suggest starship mode, so that everyone is present and free from the distraction of a ringing phone or a buzzing phone. And it'll free up web space. In the last few weeks, we've had issues with Wi-Fi being sputtery and intermittent, and a lot of that has to do with the amount of juice that's being pulled by phone. So if you could shut it off, that'd be awesome. If you don't know how to do it, turn to your left and ask the person next to you to do it for you, and they'll be happy to do that. So please take a moment now to take care of your phones, if you would.
Our opening words this morning come from Jacob Trapp, entitled To Worship. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in sunlight, or a grain of sand. To worship is to be silent, receptive, before a tree astir with the wind, or the passing shadow of a cloud. To worship is to work with dedication and skill. It is to pause from work and listen to a strain of music. To worship is to sing with the singing beauty of the earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still small voice within. Worship is a loneliness seeking communion. It is a thirsty land crying out for rain. Worship is kindred fire within our hearts. It moves through deeds of kindness and through acts of love. Worship is the mystery within us, racing out to the mystery beyond. It is an inarticulate silence, yearning to speak. It is the window of the moment, open to the sky of the eternal. Oh, brother, sun, you bring us light, all shining round in fairy might. Oh, sister moon, you heal and bless, your beauty shines and tenderness. Oh, brother wind, you sweep the hills, your mighty breath both freshens and fills. Oh, sister water, you cleanse and flow through rivers and streams in ice and snow. Oh, brother fire, you warm our night with all your dancing colored light. Oh, sister earth, you feed all things, all birds, all creatures, all scales and wings. Oh, sister death, you meet us here and take us to our God so near. Oh, God of life, we give you praise for all your creatures, for all your ways. Look at one another, smile knowingly. You did great. All right, now you may be seated.
It is our custom when we gather to light a chalice. The chalice is a cup or vessel that symbolizes the gathered community. The flame represents the spark that each one of us brings to represent the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of our commitment to bring more compassion and justice to the world. Please join me in our chalice lighting words as Eric lights the flame. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of our life together. Each week, as we light the chalice to symbolize the gathered community, we also acknowledge that our church is built on holy ground that was cultivated and occupied by the Haudenosaunee and those known as the neutrals. We offer this libation as our giveaway, a symbol of our respect for and deep connection with this land. We are a beloved community, a gathering of people who have chosen to journey together, to encourage one another, and to be part of something important and life-changing. Because we aspire to be such a people, we make bold promises about how we will be with one another. Whether today is your first time or you've made UU Amherst your longtime home, you are invited to share in our sacred promise. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world.
Our wisdom story today is a video entitled, "What is Evolution?" And it's put together by a group that calls themselves Stated Clearly. So if you're looking at your program going, "Oh, evolution stated clearly," that those are separated. What is evolution? By Stated Clearly. Okay, so this is just gonna set the stage, because today is our celebration of Evolution Day. Yay, thank God for evolution. So, and you're gonna hear a lot more about that in a little bit. But for now, here is our wisdom story.
Stated Clearly presents, what exactly is evolution? In biology, the theory of evolution doesn't tell us exactly how life began on Earth, but it helps us understand how life, once it came into existence, diversified into the many incredible forms we see now and in the fossil record. It also helps us make sense of the way in which modern creatures continue to adapt and change today. In biology, evolution can be defined as any change in the heritable traits, those are physical traits like fur color in mice, spots on the wings of butterflies, or instinctive behaviors like the way that dogs greet their friends with a sniff, within a population across generations. This definition can be a bit confusing, so let's see how it works. All healthy living things, from single-celled amoebas to flowers to dolphins, are capable of reproduction. We have children, we make copies of ourselves. We do this by duplicating our DNA and passing that DNA on to future generations. DNA is a chain-like chemical stored inside each one of your cells, which tells them how to grow and function. Your DNA contains coded information on how to build you. The information in your DNA is different than that of, say, a daffodil's DNA, which is why you look and function differently than a daffodil. The information in your DNA is slightly different than that of Elvis Presley, which is one of many reasons you don't look or act quite like he did. Single-celled amoebas and other simple creatures reproduce by copying their DNA inside their guts, moving both copies to either side of their body, splitting in two right down the middle, and then growing back to full size. If all goes well, the two new amoebas will be exact copies of each other, but in nature, things aren't always perfect. When DNA is being copied, errors can occur which modify the DNA code. This is what we call a DNA mutation. These mutations can produce variation in the body shape and function of the creature who inherits the modified DNA. In this case, our new little friend has an arm that stretches extra long. If he survives long enough to grow and reproduce, that extra stretchy arm, which is now coded for in his DNA, will be passed on to his children. Evolution. Any change in the heritable traits within a population across generations has officially occurred. Reproduction for dolphins and badgers and people is a little more complicated. We have to find ourselves a partner. When two badgers get together and, fall in love, a sperm cell from the father, which contains a copy of half of his DNA, only half, combines with the egg cell of the mother, which contains half a copy of her DNA. The result is a brand new cell with a complete set of DNA instructions, all the information needed to divide and grow up into a brand new badger. The new child matures to be similar to her parents, but also unique because she develops some traits from her mother's DNA and some from her father. Her new combination of traits can be passed on to her children, and again, evolution. Any change in the heritable traits within a population across generations has officially occurred. Besides a unique recombination of her parents' traits, she might also have developed some completely new traits of her own due to DNA mutations. Maybe extra hairy ears, for example. If she survives long enough to have kids, her DNA will combine with the DNA of her partner, and she'll pass on those extra hairy ears to at least some of her children. Again, evolution has officially occurred. So there you have it. Evolution is really pretty simple. Scientists and normal folks everywhere witness evolution happening all the time. Small changes like the ones we've seen here can add up over multiple generations to create dramatic changes. If you were to go back in time just a few thousand years, you'd find that all dogs, for example, originally evolved from an ancestral group of gray wolves. The evolution of those wolves from generation to generation was guided by humans. People were selecting wolves with the traits they liked, letting them breed, and then only keeping the puppies with the most desirable traits. As time went on, different breeders preferred dogs with different features, some selected for large size, some for small size, some for brains, others for brawn. Today, wolves have branched out into hundreds of breeds, very few of which look and behave much like their ancestors. A massive amount of observable evidence from many different fields such as genetics, chemistry, paleontology, and mathematics overwhelmingly suggests that just like all dogs share a common ancestor, all living things, me, you, pufferfish, banana trees, if you go back far enough, also share a common ancestor. We are literally related. We don't know what the first life form was or exactly how it came to be, but the simple process of reproduction with variation over billions of years looks to be responsible for all the diversity of life we see today. Now, you might be saying, wait a minute, hold on here. Isn't evolution random? To do something functional like turn a wolf into an adorable mini poodle, random evolution had to be carefully guided by an intelligent dog breeder. Researchers claim that all mammals evolved from an ancient shrew-like creature, but the difference between a shrew and an elephant is far greater than that of a wolf and a poodle. Who guided that process? Who was the breeder? In the mid-1800s, two men, Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace, independently discovered that a breeder is not necessarily needed. There is another force capable of guiding random evolution to produce order and complex function. They called it natural selection, which happens to be the entire topic of our next video. But before you move on, let's recap what we've learned so far. Biological evolution is any change in the heritable traits within a population across generations. All healthy living things can make copies of themselves, but they do so imperfectly. Small variations can add up over generations to create dramatic differences in the body form and function of living creatures. Evidence overwhelmingly suggests that all life on Earth is related. So remember, next time you invite family and friends over for a holiday feast, you're actually just inviting family. That includes the turkey and the pumpkin in the pumpkin pie. I'm John Perry, and that's evolution stated clearly.
Kind of fun, little reminder from 10th grade biology, if that's the only time you took it. No, I had to take it in college too. But anyways, it was a good reminder for me. Each week, we bring our whole selves into this sacred time. We bring our joys and our sorrows, our cares and concerns. And the table where we gather is at the heart of this community. I invite you to come forward and place a stone or shell in honor of those joys, concerns, cares, and sorrows that you bring with you today. Come forward as you will. What we do here each week, meeting one another around the table, bearing witness, maybe not knowing the particulars of what brought a person forward, but acknowledging that something stirred. This is the most sacred thing we do. Today we think of the Langan family and the health of their daughter Emily. We lift up Grace Little, whose condition is declining quickly. We thought we had months to offer our good thoughts and to have a chance to reminisce and express gratitude to Grace, but it appears we have just days. And so if you know Grace, if she has touched your heart in some way, I invite you to go and tell her. She's at Millard Fillmore, 312A. You don't have to memorize that. They'll stop you at the door. But let her know. So often we wait until a memorial service or funeral to talk about how much someone has meant to us, because it's hard to go in knowing that this person won't be here long. But what a gift to both you and that person. So if you know Grace, go and see her. We also acknowledge that our hearts are heavy with the conditions, all of the anger and violence and polarization in our world. And we don't really have to look very far to experience that sense of, wow, how did we get so far from one another? Needing to be right, needing to have all the answers. And so I acknowledge that we carry all of that with us as we gather. And in just the same way that joy is multiplied, being able to be here with one another makes the burdens a little bit lighter. So hold your tender hearts in care in the same way that you hold others in your hearts. Like this brief day, my light is nearly gone, but through the night, my children, you will go on. Heartache, prayers that don't work, and times of bitter circumstances. But I still believe in second chances. Children of Eden, where have we left you? Born to uncertainty, destined for pain. Sins of your parents haunt you and test you. This your inheritance, fire and rain. Children of Eden, try not to blame us. We were just human, too error prone. Children of Eden, will you reclaim us? You and your children to come someday, to come home. I've become my grandmother. I have another pair behind me, just in case I need that third pair. In that song from Stephen Schwartz's musical Children of Eden, Mother Eve asks us, her descendants, if we will understand, forgive, and extend grace to people who were doing their best with the resources they had at the time. Are any of us any different? Don't we make decisions and act from whatever limited understanding we have at any given time? Today we celebrate the majesty of evolution, and I hope we can do so from a place of grace, recognizing that for millennia, humans, the meaning-making animal, have been confronting the big questions with equal amounts of wonder and fear, curiosity and orthodoxy. In preparation for today's service, I read and listened to Michael Dowd's book, Thank God for Evolution, How the Marriage of Science and Religion Will Transform Your Life and Our World. That seems like a pretty tall order. And I'm not really sure that Dowd achieved what he set out to do. But he did offer his own journey and a pathway for religious people to expand their thinking and accept the truth and beauty of an evolutionary worldview. His greatest hope was that there would be an evolutionary Christianity, an evolutionary Judaism, an evolutionary Buddhism, Islam, and so on. I remember in the late 90s and early 2000s hearing about Michael Dowd and his wife Connie Barlow. They were itinerant preachers of what they called the Great Story. They spoke in schools and houses of worship, including Unitarian Universalist congregations. Their message was that there was a great story that could unify all people in a single understanding of life, the story of evolution. Dowd writes, "The universe can be trusted. To begin, let us all rejoice that there now exists a vast worldwide consensus within the scientific community about the nature and history of the cosmos, from the very, very small, subatomic, to the very, very large, the universe as a whole. We are astonished by the picture of the universe that scientists paint, by the grandeur and magic of our common creation story, the epic of evolution. Cosmologist Brian Swimme sees human purpose and meaning rooted in this great story. And he writes, this is an excerpt from his book, The Universe is a Green Dragon. The creation story unfurling within the scientific enterprise provides the fundamental context, the fundamental arena of meaning for all the peoples of the earth. For the first time in human history, we can agree on the basic story of the galaxies, the stars, the planets, minerals, life forms, and human cultures. This story does not diminish the spiritual traditions of the classical or tribal periods of human history. Rather, the story provides the proper setting for the teachings of all traditions, showing the true magnitude of their central truths. How can this be? How does this great story, rooted in the findings of science, provide the setting for the teachings of all religious traditions? Well, Catholic priest, cultural historian, and scholar of the world's religions Thomas Berry notes, it's all a question of story. We are in trouble right now because we are in between stories. The old story, the account of how the world came to be and how we fit into it, sustained us for a long time. It shaped our emotional attitudes, provided us with life purpose, energized action, consecrated suffering, integrated knowledge, guided education. We awoke in the morning and knew who we were. We could answer the questions of our children. We could identify crime and punish transgressors. Everything was taken care of because the story was there. But now, it is no longer functioning properly, and we have not yet learned the new story. The tension, that was the end of the quote. The tension between the old and new story can be described as the difference between a flat earth faith and an evolutionary faith. Dowd defines a flat earth faith as any perspective in which the metaphors and theology still in use now came into being at a time when people really did believe that the world was flat. He says that religious traditions that are scripturally based and whose texts have not changed substantially since the time of Copernicus, Galileo, Newton, Darwin, Einstein, Hubble, Dawkins, and Hawking become necessarily flat earth faiths when interpreted literally. So, let's consider the traditional teachings that most of us are familiar with. The biblical story of the Garden of Eden. But before I do, Let me begin by saying that there is no easy one-to-one correlation between the elements of the old and the new stories. There can't be. One story is based in reason and another in metaphor. Dowd describes those differences as day and night language. Day language is the language of science and first-person experience. Night language is filled with metaphors and sweeping dramas. Now consider that you have two texts. I will get to the Garden of Eden. I know I gave you one sentence and then I went down a merry path. Hang on, we're getting there. So consider that you have two texts. One is a botanical textbook, and the other is the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. Which one will you read to your child or grandchild at bedtime? Don't answer that, because you're scaring me now, because you're thinking, I don't know. Which one will put them to sleep? Both texts have merits and can teach truths about the world and how people live in the world. The botanical text is for the light of day and examining specimens under microscopes. Jack's Beanstalk adventure is filled with night language of giants and golden eggs, but teaches about the consequences of taking what is not ours. Is Jack and the Beanstalk a lie? No. It's a story that uses fantastical imagery and circumstances to engage the child's imagination and to teach certain lessons. So back to the Garden of Eden. 6 24-hour days, creating a human from dirt and a second human from their rib, and a talking snake. Day language or night language? You can answer, shout it out. And it's okay if some of you are going, day, I think it's day. We are not all about right and wrong. But I would say it's night language. These things mean things. So the originators of this story and the other stories from other cultures from which this story borrows were not liars or charlatans. They lived at a time when it was unlikely that they would venture outside their immediate group or clan. They lived in what they believed was a three-tiered universe, with the firmament, which is kind of a canopy of stars above, the abyss below, and the earth sandwiched, like a nice flat piece of sandwich material, depending on your dietary preferences. But with the firmament and the abyss being the bread, flat. That was what they observed. We still talk about the sun rising and setting, even though we know that's not what is happening. But we still engage in that metaphorical way of understanding because there's beauty and poetry to a sunrise. We still use that language. I say that it is unreasonable for us to hold people who lived in the Bronze Age to 21st century understandings. And it is unreasonable for people who live in the 21st century to insist that Bronze Age understandings are not only relevant, but are absolutely true. Let me refer to Dowd again. He writes, "The ancients could not have known that our own ancestors once lived in the sea, and that our umpteenth great-grandparents traversed the trees as gracefully as squirrels and monkeys still do. The ancients were living in the time of the great transformation from orality to literacy, from spoken stories to being able to write down and read stories. And thus, from evolving sacred stories to stories set in stone. But they could not have known of the previous transition from the constraints of primate forms of communication to the expansive possibilities of symbolic speech. In all, the ancients could not have known the wonders of deep time. End of quote. I was raised in a tradition that believed in a young earth, a worldwide flood that wiped out all but a handful of humans and animals, and an imminent second coming of Christ in the clouds to vanquish evil. There was no option of day or night language. There was only one way to understand it, and that was, God said it, we believed it, that settled it. And I say, thank God for evolution. So, let's get a little perspective.
How can you imagine 4.5 billion years? And how does that compare to the amount of time that humans have been around? A geologist gave us the idea to use a football field as a metaphor, and that's exactly what we're going to do. At this end zone, we've got the present. And at this end zone is the moment our planet formed. Earth's entire history stretches the full 100 yards in between. Every inch is 1.3 million years. Let's start at the beginning and take a walk through Earth's entire history. For the first few 100 million years, the Earth was bombarded by rocks from outer space, but now it's starting to calm down. And way up here, 3.8 billion years ago, life begins. We're talking simple life, single cells floating in a vast ocean. Now these cells are figuring out new ways to get energy. They're evolving to harness the power of the sun. Photosynthesis starts past the 20-yard line. The air here is mostly carbon dioxide and nitrogen, but right around here, little green cells start making oxygen. And up here, about 2.3 billion years ago, oxygen starts building up in the atmosphere. We're halfway down the field, and we just got the kind of atmosphere that humans can breathe. For the next 1.5 billion years, it's paradise for single cells of every variety. But as we move down the field, cells start working together. And by the time we reach the 18-yard line right here, there's lots of complex critters floating around. It's 800 million years before the present, and things are about to get really interesting. Here at the 13-yard line, we've got an ozone layer. And here, a sudden explosion of diversity. Fungi, sea anemones, mollusks. 530 million years ago, animals take their first steps on land. In the ocean, fish appear, land plants, insects, sharks, amphibians. It's been 4 billion years since we started, and here at the 5-yard line, we're just starting to see the first mammals and dinosaurs. We see Stegosaurus dinosaurs right here about 176 million years ago, but we don't see the T-Rex until about 4.5 feet from the end zone, about 68 million years ago. Look, the T-Rex is closer to us in the present than it is to the Stegosaurus way back there. Whoa, and there's a catastrophe at the 1-yard line. 66 million years ago, a meteor, or volcanoes, or climate change, or all three, killed 75% of all species. But life rallies. This yard is the yard of mammals. We've got armadillos, giant whales, wolves, and here a foot away, the great apes, our family. Hippos, mammoths, lions, Lucy, almost human but not quite, saber-toothed tigers, cattle. Then 200,000 years ago, this is where we find humans that look like us. That's just 1/8 of an inch from the end zone, the width of this light bulb. This is all of human experience, but everything we call civilization, agriculture, cities, books, science, these don't appear until we're 2 hairs breadth from the end zone. The width of this filament.
So we've reached the magical point, or should I say the evolutionary point in the service, where the great cloud of witnesses stands up and shouts, "Who cares?" And I'm always grateful for that reality check. So let me begin that by saying that as I read Dowd's book, there were many moments where I shouted, "Hallelujah!" But where he lost me was in his need to hang on to and sort of shoehorn traditional Christian night language into the day concepts of an evolutionary faith. I don't think day language needs to be hyper-rational or boring. There is a place for poetry and beauty. And this language can be trans-rational, which is different from irrational. I believe that Unitarian Universalists are uniquely positioned to integrate day and night language, to explain the epic of evolution in ways that are inspiring, and that to do all of the things that Thomas Berry described about the old story. Remember? He said that the old story has shaped our emotional attitudes, provided us with life purpose, energized action, consecrated suffering, integrated knowledge, guided education. We awoke in the morning and we knew who we were. We could answer the questions of our children. We could identify crime and punish transgressors. Everything was taken care of because the story was there. All of that can be true with a new story, with an evolutionary story. So those of you who have been here for at least a few years have probably heard me share the ideas of my theological mentor, but perhaps never in the fullness of the context of today's exploration of old and new stories, of night and day language. And because I find these insights compelling for us as a faith community, I'm going to share a small excerpt from a larger work by David Bumbaugh entitled The Marketing of Liberal Religion. I find this last little chunk of his paper to be tremendously inspiring. He writes, "Let me suggest to you that what the world needs from liberal religion, or at least from our version of liberal religion, is clarity about who we are and what matters to us. Clarity about what vision has called us into being and what promise we serve. Nor is this such an impossible challenge. While we proudly proclaim the great diversity among us, every study I have seen of Unitarian Universalists suggests that our diversity rests in a powerfully homogeneous core of shared beliefs and attitudes. Indeed, the studies suggest that at the core, we are far less diverse than many other religious groups." I know, just let that go by. No, we're the most diverse. Shh, it's okay. He continues, "Let me suggest to you some of the center of that core, the core that holds us together, those values and beliefs. We believe that the universe in which we live and move and have our being is the expression of an inexorable process that began in eons past, ages beyond our comprehension, and has evolved from singularity to multiplicity, from simplicity to complexity, from disorder to order. We believe that the earth and all who live upon the earth are products of the same process that swirled the galaxies into being, that ignited the stars and orbited the planets through the night sky, that we are expressions of that universal process which has created and formed us out of recycled stardust. We believe that all living things are members of a single community, all expressions of a planetary process that produced life and sustains it in intricate ways beyond our knowing. We hold the life process itself to be sacred. We believe that the health of the human venture is inextricably dependent upon the integrity of the rest of the community of living things and upon the integrity of those processes by which life is bodied forth and sustained. Therefore, we affirm that we are called to serve the planetary process upon which life depends. We believe that in this interconnected existence, the well-being of one cannot be separated from the well-being of the whole, that ultimately we all spring from the same source and all journey to the same ultimate destiny. We believe that those least like us, those located on the margins, have important contributions to make to the rest of the community of life, and that in some curious way we are all located on the margins. We believe that all that functions to divide us from each other and from the community of living things is to be resisted in the in the name of that larger vision of a world everywhere alive, everywhere seeking to incarnate a deep, implicate process that called us into being, that sustains us in being, that transforms us as we cannot transform ourselves, that receives us back to itself when life has used us up. Not knowing the end of that process, nonetheless, we trust it, we rest in it, and we serve it. End of quote. Perhaps this statement is flawed, and I actually condensed it. I was going as my eyes went past the clock and said, "Ooh, yes." So I can send out the fuller statement if you'd like. So maybe there's a comma out of place or some unresolved issue. Maybe it makes us prickly to go, we believe, no, I have my beliefs and you have your beliefs, and there the twain shall meet, but if they do, it will be over coffee. But we share common values. We have a covenant that we affirm each week about diversity of thought and unity of spirit. That unity of spirit counts. With David, I feel that it is inadequate for us to deride a flat earth theology without offering something transcendent to replace it. I offer it to you as a poetic response and a vision of the epic of evolution and our place in its continued work. The Dowds engaged UU singer-songwriter Peter Mayer in creating a soundtrack for the great story. Our song in response is one of those pieces. It is Blue Boat Home. It's page 1064 in your teal hymnal. We'll rise and embody your spirit as we sing together, and the words will be projected up front. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home.
Born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice as we close this portion of the service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. You may be seated.
As our service draws to an end, our service to the world is ready to begin. Let me tell you about some of the opportunities to connect and serve in the days to come. All of the Gateway Longview Angels have been claimed, which is fantastic. All gifts must be returned to the church by next Sunday, December 3rd. Note the announcement on the back of your order of service that there will be a special congregational meeting following the service on Sunday, December 10th. And I guess we're going to hear from Randy Kent right now.
Good morning. Sorry, just adjusting the hearing aids. I'm Randy Kent, your elected board chair, and I am here to continue announcing that there will be a special congregational meeting here at noon on Sunday, September 10th. December. I think it was warmer then, that's probably why I remember it. And we will be voting on a proposal to spend $10,000 for an updated engineering and architectural study from the Wendell Architects. Was pointed out, there's a lot of things that need to be done here with our buildings to take care of them. And so that will be the only thing that we're addressing at that time. I'll make one more announcement. I'm pleased to say for the first time in months, there's no water in the basement of the mansion in the furnace room. And remember, if you haven't made your pledge yet, be generous, because we have to pay for what just happened. Taking care of that. Thank you.
Today is the last Sunday that we are sharing the offering with Hearts and Hands. To participate, make checks payable to UU Amherst with Hearts and Hands in the memo line. Next week's service features a guest speaker from Home Space, supporting at-risk youth achieve independence 2 generations at a time. Like in the inn in Bethlehem, sometimes young parents just need a safe place and the support of wise, compassionate, and loving people to give their baby a good start and the skills needed to succeed in life. We will be sharing the plate with Home Space throughout December, and all funds will go directly to enhance the holidays for the residents. As always, see the church newsletter, The Forward, for information regarding upcoming services and events. And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't invite you to participate in supporting the mission and ministry of UU Amherst with your financial gifts. You'll find a green basket at the back of the chapel, right back there, to receive your contributions, or you can give online by going to our website, uuamherst.org, and clicking on the giving link, or text your gift to the number right there on the screen. Your gifts and participation are important because we pick fruit from trees we did not plant. We drink water from wells we did not dig. This is as it should be, so long as we dig and plant for those who come after us. Your generous giving supports the work of this congregation.
Please rise in body or spirit as we offer each other our closing blessing. Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. May the road rise up to greet you as you leave your past behind. I will think about you gently, and I'll hold. Now look at each other, twinkle your eyes, travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. We do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel this way with us, so be swift to love and make haste to be kind. Go in peace.